Now let's talk about some essential tools that have one common job, and that is to replace an area. Now whenever we replace an area, an obvious question comes into picture. Do you know what that question is? What are we gonna replace this area with, right? Now all of these four tools of course do the same thing, and that is replace an area. But the way they pick up other areas to replace it with is different. And that's why we have to learn all of these tools. Is there an absolute best tool? Yes, there is, but it changes from situation to situation. So it is important that we learn how each of them works and what is best for the situation that you are in. So without any further ado, let's get started. Back in the magical world of Photoshop, and let's start with the Spot Healing Brush tool. How do you access the Spot Healing Brush tool? Well, it is in the healing group right over there, and the very first one is the Spot Healing Brush tool. The icon of a band-aid with a semicircle on it, select that, and it's very simple. All you have to do is to paint on the area that you want to remove, and it does it automatically. This is the absolute most automatic tool there is. Now I'm talking about tool, I'm not talking about feature. We'll get to that later. But for right now, this is absolutely automatic. So let's say there are a couple flyaway hair that you want to remove. So this hair is jutting out and you wish to remove it. All you have to do is to just paint over it, and Photoshop will take care of the rest and automatically remove that for you. Let's paint over this again. And that is fixed. Similarly, you can do it in any of the other areas. For example, this area you want to remove, this hair. Simple. It can be hair, it can be wrinkles, it can be anything. For instance, let's say you want to remove here, everything is looking fine over here. Let's say we want to remove this hair. This is distracting us. So we can simply paint over that and it is gone. As simple as that. Now there are three types of healing that we can choose from. The first one and the default one is content aware. Then there is create texture and proximity match. Content aware is absolutely automatic. Photoshop can pick up samples from any area to best match with the area that you painted in and to blend with its surroundings. Now the next one is create texture. This is something which I seldom use, not very useful. This just simply creates a crazy texture. See that? It creates a texture. Let's say you wanted to remove something major, right? I want to remove all of this hair right over there. And right now, create texture is checked. So it kind of tries to create a texture which doesn't look okay in most cases. For instance, there is this colored tint that I want to remove. I paint over that, and it tries to create a crazy texture over it, right? This is something we do not use, absolutely useless. Let's go back to the original. You can always go to history and select the first one to restore the image to how you opened it. Okay, the third one is proximity match. Now this is sometimes useful, but I don't really find myself using it. What proximity match does is that it takes samples from the nearest areas. Okay, so for instance, let's say we want to remove this line right over there. So I'm going to paint right over it. So it tries to take samples from nearby areas. Unfortunately, near to this area, it took a sample from probably the eyelashes or the eyebrows, and it just doesn't fit, right? So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I usually use content aware. That's absolutely automatic, and I think Photoshop does a fantastic job. Well, I think I praised Photoshop too much. Well, sometimes you gotta have to try the proximity match and see how it works. Well, it worked better. Now I'm gonna go back to content aware and paint on the areas which it didn't get right. So that is something we have to do from time to time. It's a hit or trial, but usually by default, content aware works in most of the cases. Let's try some other place. For instance, let's try probably if something is coming out, all right, this hair. So let's say we want to remove this. With content aware, let's see how the results are. Yeah, it does a pretty good job. It breaks it away from here, which we can remove as well. We just have to be a little careful, and it's a pretty decent job. Let's go back. Let's try it with proximity match. And as I told you, it'll try to sample from nearby areas. And usually it works in simple cases like this. See, it worked. It isn't bad. But both are just, keep in mind, both are just two different technologies. Proximity match just takes samples from nearby areas. Content aware is fully automatic. It didn't anything. Alright, now it messed up. Have a look. It tried to take sample from a nearby area and it didn't fill with that of the background. If you go back to content aware, I guess it'll do a better job. See? Now, what I wish from Adobe is to have an option that after you paint, you have an option to choose between these two. That would be pretty cool, but we don't have that option. Alright. Now let's come to the next option, and that is sample all layers. One of the most important things. Why is it important? Up until now, whatever we did was absolutely destructive, right? It's baked in. We can't go back. Let's say we worked on in here and probably we removed this hair right over there. Okay. Now what if we want that hair back? After 1,000 steps, it's just not possible. There's no way I can erase that area and bring that hair back. It's not possible. So therefore, we don't do it this way. We don't work with healing tools this way. Let's go back to how it was before. We first create a brand new layer, right? And you can name it for your convenience. We can name this healing, right? And then you check sample all layers. If that is unchecked, no matter what you do, nothing will happen, because it's only sampling the current layer, and the current layer does not have anything at all. So make sure you check sample all layers and then you start working on it. And when you work with that, let me show you what happens. Now when you remove something, it is on its own layer. You can turn it off and turn it on. You can also just decrease the opacity of it, and that is helpful in some cases when you're removing wrinkles and stuff, right? This is non-destructive, and if you want to erase it, you can easily do that as well. You can create a mask, or you can directly, with the help of the eraser tool, erase it. See how non-destructive that was? Now you can go back to your spot healing brush tool and continue working on it. Now, as with the regular healing brush tool as well, the spot healing brush tool also has blend modes. How are they useful? Just keep in mind there are two important blend modes that you have to keep in mind. Apart from normal, normal will be the default. You just have to worry about darken and lighten. We don't use the rest of those. It's mostly useless. Just learn darken and lighten, and let's understand what they do and how they work. So here I have a document filled with gray. Now let's take our brush and paint one area with white. So I'm gonna take white as my foreground color, and then just simply with a simple hard round brush, I'm gonna paint this area with white. Now another area we're gonna paint with black. So with the foreground color black, let's paint this area as black. Now imagine that this is a picture and you have a white spot and a dark spot. Or in other words, you can say you have a bright spot and a dark spot, or a black spot. Now if you take the spot healing brush tool right here, and now if you change the blend mode to darken, there's just one thing Photoshop will do, and that is darken. If it cannot darken, it won't do anything. Does that make sense? No? Let me explain. So right now, this picture is gray, and this gray picture has a white spot in it. And you only want to remove that white spot. Now that white spot is brighter than the surrounding areas. So how do you remove that bright spot? By darkening it. So we chose the blend mode darken and we paint over it and it is gone, right? Let me bring it back. Now, if you paint over this dark spot with the darken blend mode selected, no matter how much you paint, it just won't go. So what does that teach us? When you have the darken blend mode selected, number one, it only darkens. There's just one job that it can do, darken. If it cannot darken, rule number two, if it cannot darken, it won't do anything to the dark area. In other words, you can say that the area that you want to remove or the spot that you want to remove is darker than the surrounding areas or darker than what Photoshop samples from. It won't do anything if the darken blend mode is selected. Why? Because it can only darken. Now, when you choose the blend mode lighten, opposite happens. It can only lighten. So if I paint on this area, nothing will happen because it is brighter than the surrounding area. And this blend mode can only lighten stuff. It'll never darken anything. So if you just paint on this area, it'll remove it. Mostly it'll remove it. There's a little bit of that left. If I paint on it again, it is gone, right? So now, how is that useful? Let's get back to our image and let me show you. So if you zoom into the lips, there are some white spots that we want to remove. So we know that we have to darken them. These are bright spots. So with the darken blend mode selected, make sure sample all layers is checked. Now when we paint over these, Photoshop makes sure that we are only darkening it, nothing else. If the blend mode was normal and if you painted on some of those, it will also sample the bright spots and brighten it in some areas. So let me try in some of these areas and you'll be able to understand what's happening. See, now when I painted here, there are some bright spots left as well because Photoshop doesn't know what is normal, right? We have to tell Photoshop, all right, Photoshop, you have to only darken it. Now when I painted here, have a look. This was before, this was after. It also brightened this. It sampled from this area and also brightened it. We don't want that. We want to tell Photoshop, hey Photoshop, we are only darkening these. So therefore you choose the blend mode darken and then paint on these areas. You're just being specific with Photoshop. Now, if the thing you want to remove has a ton of brightness levels, normal is the best blend mode. Actually, normal is best for most cases. But darken is useful for specific cases like these, when you know what Photoshop is supposed to do in those areas. So similarly, as we paint over, no matter what we do, it will never add a bright area to it. So there you go. Paint over that again. So how easily we have removed most of these. Here's the before, here's the after. Look how easy that was with the darken blend mode. Now let me show you an application of the lighten blend mode. So here we have a man with a beard, right? And let's say you want to shape the beard in a certain way. If you choose the normal blend mode and try to do it, it'll also sample beard hair from surrounding areas and just place it there. So if I just simply paint over right here, see what happens. It can sample beard hair from here and place it there. It just wouldn't fit because if I'm painting right here, have a look. It's sampling beard hair from here and there and adding hair there. The only thing we want to do is removing the beard hair. And we know that the beard is darker than the skin. So what is the blend mode we're going to choose here? Lighten. So let's go ahead and choose lighten. Now, no matter how much you paint, it won't darken that area. It'll just brighten it. And therefore, as you can clearly see, that the beard is gone. So you can use this to give the beard a nice shape. It'll only paint and it will only replace the darker areas. So easily you can just paint over here and there and just give the beard the shape that you desire. You can also create a guide and from there you can do it. And you can continue just giving it a nice shape. Shaving in post. Now I had already done it. Let me show that to you. So this was what I had done. So here is the before, here's the after. See? On top of that, if you want, you can create one more layer and change the blend mode to normal and maybe fix little issues like these right here. That's not a big thing. If there are some bright areas, bright white hair beard, you can remove those. And just for fine tuning, you can take this extra step. My only objective was to make you understand how the lighten and the darken blend mode work. I hope you understand that by now. Now let's move on to the next tool, which is the regular healing brush tool, or in other words, simply the healing brush tool. I like to call it the regular healing brush tool just to differentiate from the spot healing brush tool. Just choose the healing brush tool. It's not the spot. Let's zoom in. And in this example, let's say you want to remove these eye bags. The first thing we do, we create a brand new layer and then start working on it. Now, what is the healing brush tool? What is the difference between the spot healing brush tool and the regular healing brush tool? Well, the regular healing brush tool is a little more manual than the spot healing brush tool. In spot healing brush tool, it was up to Photoshop to determine where it is going to sample from to replace that area that you painted in. With the regular healing brush tool, you can define and tell Photoshop where to sample from. And on top of that, you have the similar blend modes, darken, lighten, normal, right? So with this tool, if you directly try to paint, it will give you an error. The error is simply saying that there is no source or you have not defined an area for Photoshop to sample from. Hit OK. All you have to do is to define an area, and that you do by holding the Alt key or the Option key and then clicking on that area where you want it to sample from. Now you can start painting on an area which you want to replace. It's not doing anything. You know why? Because sample current layer is selected. In the current layer, there is nothing. Make sure sample current and below is selected. You can also go for all layers if you want to sample from all of the layers on top of it as well. I usually don't do that because sometimes there are some adjustment layers on top and it will also take that into consideration and it can become a mess. So let's choose current and below for now and hold the Alt key, click to take a sample. Here as well, you can make the brush smaller, bigger, a little softer. That's up to you. And start painting here. Now, as you can see, that eye bag is absolutely gone. And as you can tell, this is looking okay, but not very realistic. So what would you do? Well, simply decrease the opacity. But before that, let's do the other one as well. So hold the Alt key or the Option key, click to take a sample and just paint over right here. That one is gone as well. Now you can simply decrease the opacity to make it a little more realistic. So I'm gonna keep it somewhere about at 65%. There you go. Here's the before, here's the after. Easily gone. And if you want to work a little more advanced, although normal works best in most cases, you can also use blend modes. So let's say we didn't do this. Let's delete that layer. Let's create a brand new layer. If you were to select the blend mode lighten, it will make sure that it only lightens and it won't paint on other areas. It won't influence other areas. So I'm just going to take a sample from here. And now if I paint, it does the same job, but it kind of makes sure that it only lightens. So if I take one more sample from right here and paint there, it only will paint on an area that it can lighten. All right. So if you take a sample from, let's say, this dark pupil right there and try to paint on a bright area, it just won't paint. Why? Because the lighten blend mode is selected. Right? You understand how this works? Similarly, here as well. Let's say you want to sample from here instead from here. You want to sample from here because you want that area to be replacing that. And then you paint over it. You are kind of relaxed because you know that it is only going to lighten and not do anything. After that, if it doesn't work, you can try other areas. But for now, let's try this area as well. Yeah, that kind of works. All right, there you go. Can be very useful in certain scenarios. So here I see a dark patch and I only want to replace that dark patch and nothing else. So with the light and blend mode selected, I'll just take a sample and paint over it. It'll only lighten that area. So if you have the light and blend mode selected, the paint will only flow if you are painting on an area which is darker than the sampled area. Makes sense? And the opposite will happen with the dark and blend mode. And then you can definitely work on these blemishes as well. Okay, and there you go. Interesting. Here's the before, here's the after, here's the before, here's the after. Now there's again a dark patch right there. So I want to take a sample and kind of brighten it with the light and blend mode. It's not doing anything. So I'm going to try this area. All right. Here we go. Now I'm going to decrease the opacity to about 60%. Brilliant. So here's the before, here's the after. Easily removed. So now you know the light and blend mode and the dark and blend mode and how it also applies to the regular healing brush tool. Let's come to our second example, and in this example I'm going to show you how do you remove these wrinkles from clothes. Again, let's create a brand new layer, and we're going to use the healing brush tool, and in here let's change the blend mode back to normal. Now the healing brush tool is pretty amazing because, as I told you, it allows you to choose where to sample from, and it can be advantageous, and here's why. So let's say you want to remove this wrinkle right here. If you use the spot healing brush tool, this alignment might break. See this line coming through? We don't want to remove that, and if we try to paint over it, that can break. So if you choose the spot healing brush tool here and you try to paint over here, that line might not be straight or might be broken in some cases as well. So if I paint too much, you will understand what it does here. See that? Photoshop has come a long way. So it's doing a good job, but earlier it didn't. So with the healing brush tool, you can precisely tell Photoshop what and how to replace it with. So let's say I sample from right here. You will see a preview. That's the great part. You'll see a preview, and then you can line up the preview. I'm sorry about that. Then you can simply line up the preview right here. Once you have lined that up perfectly, then start painting. Then see how amazingly we have removed it. So here's the before, here's the after. See that? It's lined up. It's coming with that crease. It's brilliant. Similarly here, there is this line coming through. So I can take a sample from right here, line it up according to the crease, and then start working on this. See? Make sure you line it up right here and then start working on this. Now with the spot healing brush tool, this can be challenging because if you paint on a crease, it might sample from another crease. So let's say I was to use the spot healing brush tool and you try to remove something like this. Well, I kind of worked well. But usually it doesn't. Let's try it. Wow, it's getting better, man. Well, this is useful. It is just that Photoshop's automation has gone a lot better. Really, trust me, it has. It's doing a pretty darn good job. But there will be places where it will miss a little bit. I'm sure it will. Alright, there you go. Here it broke a little bit. Now, if you do it with the spot healing brush tool, you would notice that some areas that it just softens so much and the texture is lost. Let me show you. So this was before, there was some texture to it. Once we painted over it, the texture is lost and it just isn't looking very smooth and realistic. That's why I recommend, for these cases, I recommend the regular healing brush tool, because then you have the option to choose the sample. So I can choose this sample and very cleanly line it up. Look how clean that is right now. Look how cleaner that is as compared to the spot healing brush tool. Similarly right here, you can just take a sample, use the preview, line it up, and then do it. See how clean that is, how much better results that it gives you. Similarly right here, line that up and then remove it. See? And then you can work your way through it. So here's the before, here's the after. That crease is absolutely gone. Now you can work on the other areas. If you want to be fast, well, then definitely use the spot healing brush tool. By the way, if you're not seeing that preview inside the brush, you can always go to Window and then clone source right here. And then you can make sure that show overlay is checked. If this is unchecked, it won't show you the preview. No matter how much you sample, it won't show the preview. If you check it, only and only then it will tell you and show you actually the preview. Similarly right here, let's remove this crease. Now if you were to do this one with the spot healing brush tool, you will see the difference. See, the texture is lost right here. See how finely the texture was coming? But up until this point, the texture is just so mixed up and it doesn't align properly. If we were to do this, I would recommend using the healing brush tool here. You take a sample, you line it up properly, and then when you paint, now see the texture is aligned very, very well. On top of that, you will have to fix certain areas like this area right there at the bottom. You get the point. But it's just that you get the option and you have the manual control to tell Photoshop where to sample from with the regular healing brush tool. Now do keep in mind, this is not a simple copy and paste. Photoshop is still trying to match the color and the texture. It is not like the clone stamp tool, which we'll come to later, but keep in mind, the clone stamp tool is simply copy and paste in a brush. So if I were to use the clone stamp tool and let's say I want to remove this blemish right over there, by taking a sample from right here or any part of the skin, let's say the neck, and on purpose, if we hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on in there and try to remove that blemish, it will create one more blemish because the clone stamp tool is simply a copy and paste in a brush. It just copies from this area and pastes right here. That's all it does. However, the spot healing brush tool or the regular healing brush tool for that matter, even if you sample from this area and try to paint on that area, it will try to match the color and the texture. See, it matched that. The spot healing brush tool and the regular healing brush tool are not dumb. They try to match an area with the surrounding areas. The difference is, in the regular healing brush tool, you have the option to tell Photoshop where to sample from. Again, when it comes to remove blemishes, if you have time, I would always recommend using the regular healing brush tool. If you don't have much time, the spot healing brush tool works fine. So let's choose the regular healing brush tool in this case. Now, as we can see, look at these blemishes. They have a darker area. They also have a brighter area. So we cannot use any blend mode here. We have to keep it normal. So let's take a sample from right here and paint over it. That blemish is gone. Also, don't forget to do it on a brand new layer, sample current and below. So gone. Just take sample, holding the Alt key or the Option key, click to take a sample of an area that you want to choose to replace that area with. So you have to pick a similar area. So we know that this area would look like this area. So let's take a sample from that area and paint over that. You can continue painting from here as well. Similarly, in this area, we know that this area will be painted like this area at the top, not this area on the right. So you have the freedom to choose how you want it to be replaced. Let's take a look at the before and after for this area. So here is the before, tons of blemishes, and here is the after. Now let me share with you one more trick. Whenever you're removing blemishes, there's a trick to see all of the blemishes at once easily. And that is, and maybe we will discuss this in the retouching section, and that is simply creating a black and white adjustment layer. And then don't show this to the model, decrease the reds. You can also try decreasing and increasing the yellows to improve visibility. Now, as you decrease the reds, you will be able to notice all of the blemishes. Just look at the head. So many blemishes. It just makes it easier for you to see. Now you can come to this layer and make sure current and below is checked. If you check all layers, it'll also sample considering the black and white layer, and it will become a mess. Just make sure current and below is checked. And now hold the Alt key or the Option key, click to take a sample. It's easily visible and you can easily remove all of these blemishes for you. Now we know that these are dark spots. So does that give you an idea? Well, simply use the blend mode, lighten, because we know we only want to remove the dark areas and we only want to replace the dark areas, just the dark areas, by brightening it. So take a sample from right here and paint there. Now have a look, it's only replacing areas that are darker than the sampled area. Makes it so much more efficient and realistic. Let's take a look. Here's the before, here's the after. See how we are using blend modes as well with the regular healing brush tool. So that's how you would remove blemishes. Now keep in mind, the spot healing brush tool also works fine when it comes to removing blemishes. It is just that the regular healing brush tool gives you a more realistic result. Now it's time for us to discuss the patch tool. You will also find it in the same group. The third one here, patch tool. How does it work? Well, it's very simple. Now keep in mind, we have not created any new layer. We are in the same layer. The way it works is pretty simple. Let's say you want to remove something from this image. Let's say I'm going to take one more blemish right over here. Okay. So circle that blemish, the area that you want to replace, just circle it. Drag it to an area that you want to replace it with. So I'm going to choose an area which matches the most with that of the area and just release it, and Photoshop does the rest. By the way, I pressed Ctrl or Command D to deselect. Similarly here as well. Similarly here as well, right? Now, you can make selections in a lot of ways. It is just not that you choose the patch tool and then you have to make a selection. No. You can also choose the rectangular marquee tool, the elliptical marquee tool. I'm just saying, right? So if you were to use, let's say, the elliptical marquee tool, and then if you were to select a blemish, it would do the same thing for you. All you got to do is to make a selection like this, okay? Then go to the patch tool, then just drag it and drop it right there. Works with any selection tool. You just have to go to the patch tool. But again, I usually use it by just selecting the patch tool and making selection, just encircling areas that you want to replace. Right now, just keep in mind at the top in the options bar for the patch tool, source is selected. We'll discuss source and destination later, but for right now, just make sure source is selected. Now diffusion is the way that it matches the patch with the surrounding areas. You can try different values and see what works for you. For me, 5 works perfectly. Can I give you one more little tip to remove blemishes? And this can help you remove blemishes really fast. And that is just circle the blemish right here and hold the shift key and keep on circling other blemishes. That's it. Just keep on circling them. Now if you want to remove all of them, just click and drag to the right or left or the nearest area and drop. Press Ctrl or Command D. All of these blemishes gone. Now the only thing with the patch tool is that it does not work on an empty layer. So if I were to create a brand new empty layer, and in this empty layer if I try to select that area and try to replace it, it just won't work. So how do you work with the patch tool if it's so destructive? Well, the way you kind of make it non-destructive is by just creating a copy of the subject layer by pressing Ctrl or Command J. Now you have a duplicate, or if you had a lot of layers, you would have to merge it into one by pressing Ctrl, Alt, Shift and E. Now it's not doing anything. So create a brand new layer and then press Ctrl or Alt, Shift and E. And now work on it. That way you always have a backup. If you want to erase something, you can create a mask here and erase that. And you always have the original backup. Now there are a couple things we can do with the patch tool though. Let me show you. So here we have another example, and before we try to apply the patch tool, press Ctrl or Command J to make a copy and have a backup. Now right now for the patch tool, source is selected, which means that if I make a selection of this area, the small hut or whatever the thing is right there, probably, I don't know what it is, I'm sorry. So you just drag it and drop it right here. The whole area will be replaced. Press Ctrl or Command D, and as you can see, that has been replaced. Let's go back. If I had chosen a destination and then if we made a selection and then moved it somewhere here or anywhere, it just makes a duplicate of that and matches it. Press Ctrl or Command D. Okay, so now you know the difference. So similarly, I'm just going to select this area right there and place it right there with the destination selected, and it matches it so beautifully. Press Ctrl or Command D to deselect. There you have it. So now you know the difference between source and destination. Now, one of the advantages of Photoshop is that whenever you apply something in Photoshop, it can be faded. No, I'm not talking about opacity. It's something else. So let's say in this case, first of all, let's make a copy by pressing Ctrl or Command J. You feel like this hot spot should be removed, or at least should be a little less. This is how you do it. Again, with the patch tool selected, make sure source is selected and then make a selection of this area. Okay. Now make sure it's accurate. Now we're gonna just drag it and drop it probably right over here. Now as you can see, the hot spot is gone, but it is completely gone. We don't want to take it away completely. So here is what you do. You can of course decrease the opacity, but if you decrease the opacity, then what if you want to do some other areas? How would you have different opacities for different areas? Not possible, right? So once just you have replaced it with the patch tool, go to edit and then fade patch selection. Now this is like undo on a slider. If the opacity is at 0, it'll be like nothing happened. If the opacity is at 100, it's absolutely covered. So you can find some middle ground right here. I feel like 35 would be a good number, and hit OK. And there you have it. Here is the before. Let me show you. Here's the before. Here's the after. Faded. And you can apply it with the spot healing brush tool or the healing brush tool as well. So let's say you were removing a wrinkle with the spot healing brush tool. So let's say this is a wrinkle line that you want to get rid of. Like this. You paint it over it and it's gone. But it's completely gone. So just after doing that, you would go to edit and fade spot healing brush. Similarly here, you can fade it. So instead of absolutely removing it, you can just fade it a little. Keep it a little natural. You get the point. So anything you do in Photoshop, anything that you apply can be faded. It also works with the clone stamp tool as well. So if I were to select the clone stamp tool and if I were cloning the eye and placing a third eye right there, you can go to edit and then fade clone stamp. You can do that as well. So a very useful feature. Now let us talk about the most dumb tool for replacing an area in Photoshop, and that is the clone stamp tool. Now why is it dumb? Well, it doesn't try to match anything with the surrounding areas. It is just a simple copy and paste in a brush, as we learned before. So if you have the clone tool selected and you sampled from an area by holding the Alt key or the Option key, click to take a sample, and then you paint on the other area, see, it's not even matching. It is just simply a copy and paste in a brush. So if this tool is so dumb, why do we need it? Well, as with any dumb things, we can control them even more. Since this is dumb, we have a lot more control over this tool. We have a lot more control over what to paint, where, and how to match it. That's totally up to us. For example, in this case, let's say you wanted to remove this lady from the rock. She's sitting on the rock. And if you had to use, let's say, the spot healing brush tool, and if we try to paint over her, this probably will not work. Let's try doing it. See, it kind of merges that with that of the water. It just isn't looking right. Even if we were to use the regular healing brush tool, if we took a sample from right here and try to paint, right now the light and blend mode is selected. Make sure you change it back to normal. And if we try to paint right here, see, the water is matching so good, but when we come to the rock, it kind of would merge right on over there. The top part is fine, but the bottom part just not working. You see, when you want to remove something that is attached, it is just impossible to do it with these intelligent tools because they are intelligent. They will make mistakes. They will try to match everything. If there is something attached like a branch, so let's say this is a branch from a tree, and you want to remove this branch, Photoshop's intelligent tools will get confused as to how do I end this? It'll try to also match this area, the end, and therefore it just blurs there. It just makes it a mess. So therefore, in these cases, we need the dumb tool so that we have the absolute control and we can tell, all right, end it this way. And this is how you do it. So you choose the dumb tool, which is the clone stamp tool, and then you just make a barrier right here. Just break it off, and then you can use the intelligent tools. And that way you are the most intelligent person. So let's make a selection first with the lasso tool. So we're gonna make a selection of the rock right here. And you can just move your hand and vibrate your hand a little bit to just mimic the texture of a rock. So I'm just gonna, a little bit extra is fine. Okay, so this works, kinda. All right, I'm gonna select a little extra here. You can also add or subtract from the selection. You could have also used the quick selection tool, but I'm just lazy right here. All right, so something like this would work. Okay, good. So now we have basically the rock and a little bit of the bottom selected. Here's what we do. On a brand new layer, select the clone stamp tool, make sure the sample is current and below. Just finish the rock. So you take a sample from right here and just finish the rock here. Take a sample from right here and just line it up properly. Finish the rock. There you go. Now, if this was too sharp, after making the selection, you can also do this. You can go to select, modify, and then add a little feather to it. Probably 1 pixel is fine, and then do it. Let's take a sample from right here, probably, and just try to match it and finish the rock there. Similarly, right here, let's take a sample and finish the rock there. Now we have the rock covered. We just have to separate her. Now we have to paint outside. So let's invert the selection by pressing Ctrl-Shift-I or Command-Shift-I. And let's just do the bottom part. Let's take a soft round brush for the clone stamp, select that layer, hold the Alt key or the Option key, click to take a sample of the water and just paint here. Similarly, let's take a sample from here and just paint here. Similarly, I'm going to take a sample from here, just paint there. And once you have separated her, now it's easy. You know the divide and rule theory? That's how it's going to work. Now you have divided her. Press Ctrl or Command D. You can use the patch tool, you can use whatever tool of your choice, you can use one of the intelligent tools. All of these 3 tools are intelligent, so I'm just going to choose the regular healing brush tool. And now let's hold the Alt key or the Option key, click to take a sample, and just start painting from right here. No big deal. Easily gone. Let's do the bottom area. There you go. See how easily we have removed that? Oh, I messed that up a little. So let's try the patch tool just for this area. But for the patch tool, we would have to create a stamp visible layer, and that you can create by pressing Ctrl, Alt, Shift, and E. And then let's choose the patch tool and just let's select that area carefully and take it to probably this area. Ctrl or Command D, gone. Completely gone. Let's take a look at the before and after. So here is the before, here is the after. See, we learned a couple things. The first thing is dumb tools give you more control, but it takes a little more work than the intelligent tools. The most intelligent thing to do for you is to use both the tools in combination. Where intelligent tools don't work, we have to use our intelligence with the dumb tool so that we can tell them exactly what to do. Just in those areas. For the rest of the areas where the intelligent tools can work, we use the intelligent tools. By the way, if you wanted to preserve the original shape of the rock, how do you do that then? Well, if you zoom in right around here, and let's say you take the clone stamp tool, and then you hold the Alt key or the Option key, click to take a sample, and then even if you line it up, it just will go straight. It won't bend. How do you make it bend? Well, all you have to do is to go to Window and then Clone Source. This also works with the regular healing brush tool. So let's select the clone source, and here, after you take a sample from, let's say, right here, it will show you a preview right here. You want to rotate it? Well, there is this angle parameter. Just click and drag it to the right. Now you will see it's a little rotated. If you want to rotate it more, just increase the value. If you want to rotate it to the left hand side, decrease the value. You get the point. And by the way, there's a shortcut for it. All you have to do, first of all, let's say you took a sample from right here. If you want to rotate it clockwise, hold the Alt key, the Shift key, and then the left and right arrow bracket keys. So the right arrow bracket key will rotate it clockwise and the left arrow bracket key will rotate it anti-clockwise. See that? So now I'm rotating it. Let's rotate it a little bit more, and now let's paint it right there. You see how it works? Similarly right here, if you had taken a sample from right here and you want to rotate it, so you press the Alt key, the Shift key. On a Mac that would be Option key and the Shift key, and then the left arrow bracket key to rotate it that way. And then you can just line it up and continue. I hope that makes sense. Now that we have talked about all of the important tools to replace an area, sometimes it just makes sense to use a specific feature, which we're gonna discover right now, to replace an area. And after that, you can use these tools to correct it. So in this example, let's say we were to replace this windmill right there. If we were to use the patch tool, let's say, we would have to select all of it like this, right? And finding a sample would be hard because if you take it to the right, there will be the tree. If you take it further right, it just won't match. There will still be tree. And if you take it left, there is just no space there, right? It just won't work. So let's go back. If you use the spot healing brush tool, well, it guesses a lot. I'm not recommending that. If you choose the regular healing brush tool, yes, you can do it. But again, things are linked. Things are joined together. And as we learned with every intelligent tool, it just kind of messes up with linked stuff. Let's say there's a branch. If we want to break off this branch, it just will bleed out in this area with those intelligent tools. It doesn't know how to end it there. No, my arm is safe. Don't worry about it. All right. So now if you hold the Alt key or the Option key, click to take a sample. And then if you try to remove it there, look at this leak right there. It just won't look nice. And it's going to take a hell lot of time to get it right. If you use the clone stamp tool again, it won't match. So what makes the most sense here? Well, the only thing that makes the most sense is choose the polygonal lasso tool or the lasso tool, any selection tool of your choice. Make a selection of this windmill, stay a little outside. Just like this. And then you already might have guessed it. Go to Edit and then Content Aware Fill. That's it. Now here you can just tell Photoshop where to sample from, where not to sample from. So here you have a lot of options. And I want to tell Photoshop, all right, let's not sample from the tree areas. Green are the areas where Photoshop will sample from. You can sample from these areas, so hold the Alt key and then just paint on these areas. And let's see what kind of results it creates. For the most part, it creates a wonderful result. Now you can also try changing color adaptation and rotation adaptation a little bit and see what kind of a change it creates for you, but I'm gonna leave it at default. And I want to output it to a new layer so that we always have a backup. It's non-destructive. Hit OK. So that replaced area is on a brand new layer, as you can see. Now in that replaced area, everything is perfect. Look at it. It was just one click. Everything is perfect. You didn't have to do any hassle, but there's just one area that just doesn't look right. For that area, you can use any tool of your choice. You can use the regular healing brush tool. So we can probably take a sample from right here, right? Make sure sample is current and below, blend mode normal, and just paint on that area. That's it. And that area is fixed. You can also paint at the top, try painting from the bottom, and there you go. That is easily fixed, and that windmill is easily removed. So keep in mind, in most realistic cases, we use a combination of these tools. And if there is something complex we wish to remove, it always makes sense to first try the content-aware fill and then probably correct what content-aware fill didn't get right. I hope by now you have an understanding of how the replacing tools work in Photoshop. Just keep in mind, Spot Healing tool is absolutely automatic. The regular healing brush tool is the Spot Healing brush tool, but with an option to tell Photoshop where to sample from, but it still automatically tries to match it with the surrounding areas, and therefore that's an intelligent tool. The patch tool, on the other hand, gives you the option to select the area that you wish to replace and then pick an area that you want to replace it with. Again, it's an intelligent tool as well, because if you pick an area, it will try to match it with that of the surrounding areas. However, the clone stamp tool is just plain dumb. For good, because we have more control. What does it do? It is simply a copy and paste in a brush. Well, I hope this lesson helped you. See you in the next one.